Welcome back, radio entrepreneurs, listeners, and fans. I'm producer Nathan Gobes, filling in for JDavis this morning. I'm excited because back at my side once again is Peter Myerson, retired attorney and author. Welcome back, Peter.
Thanks for having me, Nathan. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. And of course, since you can see Mark Furman on your screen here, or if you're on the podcast, you probably see his name, which means this is another episode of Entrepreneurship and the Law with Mark Furman, shareholder and director at Tarlow, Hart Rodgers. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Nathan, and nice to see my old friend Peter Myerson. It's been a while.
Too long.
Yes.
This is the way people see people in the current situation.
Well, since I have two legal powerhouses in the virtual room here with me, I think we wanted to talk about some of the changes that COVID has had on business, hiring, things like that.
Yeah, let me just say that the changes have been profound, massive, really, and to a great extent, I think there will be changes that are permanent. You know, people are now talking about getting back to the office, and many companies have gone in the direction of having required 2 or 3 days a week in the office, and the rest of the time you can work from wherever you're most productive. And that's quite a change because before COVID, it was the norm that people would be in the office every day unless they were out of the office on business. And so there has been a dramatic change. I mean, my firm has continued the policy that we implemented, after COVID, where people can work wherever they can be most productive. And for some people, that means coming in the office every day. For some people, it means coming in the office a few times a month or once a week. But for some folks, they hardly ever come in. And I think it creates opportunity, I think, for firms like mine, where if people are working virtually, from a remote location, they could be anywhere. I mean, they could be in Indiana or California or in Germany or France, because the nature of Zoom has made it that we can collaborate and work together without being in person. And, there's some pluses to it. I think it's improved work-life balance because it's eliminated commutes, which for many people before COVID would be, an hour or 2 hours a day. So that time gets freed up. And it's easy to schedule times when you need to collaborate, where you all get together and have a Zoom and go over things, and you can share the screen and look at documents. And it's, in some ways very efficient. I think there's a downside though, too, because there's you have a firm culture, and you like to have interaction between folks who work together. And so to address that problem, we've tried to increase the number of firm social events. Some of them are on Zoom and others are in person. We've had a magician come on, and he does a virtual magic show. We've done it a couple of times. He's a New York-based magician who, had an in-person show for decades, and then COVID hit, and he completely redesigned the show so that it worked on Zoom, and it was great. So in that, we've had wine tasting, wine and cheese pairings, trying to have fun. We've played the equivalent of Family Feud on Zoom. And we're encouraging people who work together to, plan get-togethers as a group. So um, as you know, I handle disputes, and so the folks I work with, we're plan dinners and are getting together. You need to maintain that kind of firm tie, and it can be more challenging when you don't run into each other, grabbing a cup of coffee or at the water cooler on a daily basis. But so, like everything else in life, there are pluses and minuses. But for certain people who do what I do, it adds a level of flexibility. I still go to court in person, but some court hearings are on Zoom. And at the beginning of COVID, they were all on Zoom.
Mm.
And so I hope that some, less important court hearings continue on Zoom. But we'll see. It's not for me to decide. But, I remember having case in Chicago that there were status conferences regularly on the case, and that involved my flying into Chicago from Boston for each of those at the time. And now something like that, it would be very efficient if that could be done on Zoom, save a lot of time, a lot of money. And so so I hope it some aspects of this virtual work environment remain. And maybe someday we'll be back in the office, everybody back in the office every day, but that day is certainly not here now as far as my firm is concerned.
Mark,
So-
sorry, Peter. I keeping on the topic of issues, something that comes to my mind that I wanted to get your opinion on is, I know you talked about many firms or companies setting up, 2 to 3 or so mandatory days in the office. I wonder if how that impacts, maybe some of the executive team or business partners, and whether or not something like that might end up getting baked into partnership agreements. You have, let's say, a business partner who expects his partner to be in the office maybe every day, and another partner that doesn't want to. That's kind of something that has never really been tackled, I think, before in partnership agreements that I wonder whether or not you think we might see in the future.
It hasn't been an issue in my firm, so I mean I can't speak more broadly than that. We have a firm management committee. On it, we meet regularly on Zoom. Some of the folks are in the office more often, much more often than other folks. So I think it hasn't been an issue. I think people, productivity, I think, is really what people look at. And I think at the beginning of COVID, there was this fear that the sky was falling, the world was stopped. And certainly in civil litigation, the courts were closed for months and all cases just froze. And but since then, I think the courts have reopened. The economy has withstood COVID, incredibly withstood COVID. And I think for many businesses and many industries, 2021 was a banner year. It was in the world of law, I mean, it was a very active year in terms of corporate transactions, supported by a low interest rate environment and strong economy despite COVID. So I know that's not just true of my firm, but as I talk to people in other firms, it seems to be true basically industry-wide, at least in the greater Boston area, but from what I've read, nationally too. So I think there's, I don't know how, I'm working on my own cases and I'm available to help people if they need help on their cases. That's what collaboration is within the law world. And I don't see it being an issue in my world as to, you have to be in the office. I mean, if you're in the sales world, you're never in the office that much. You were out making the rounds and seeing your relationships and because marketing and sales is a contact endeavor where you have to be in contact with people. But what is different that I have found, and I'm getting off the partnership relationships, but
Sure.
I now have clients who I've never met. Not that I haven't offered to meet them, but they're in a different state, and they have a legal matter here, and they're not anxious to come here, and my personality isn't good enough for them to want to come see me, and they have no interest in my traveling to see them. So we just work together on the cases using the phone and Zoom and email and all of that. And I'm not sure I ever represented people before COVID that I hadn't actually met. It's extraordinary when I look at, this pre-COVID period of my career compared to now. But this is the world in which we live.
It is. It is.
I mean, I would say, in quick answer to your question, Nathan, it's a practical consideration among partners who, if one partner is really unhappy with another partner, you're going to have to talk up. I don't see how you can legislate it in a partnership agreement, particularly, although people will be thinking about that in a different way now. So,
yeah,
my 2 cents.
Thank you. Well, that's all we have time for on today's episode of Entrepreneurship in the Law with Mark Furman. Mark, if people have questions of their own, want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get you?
I can be reached at 617-218-2025, or my email, mfurman, Furman, @tbhr-law.com.
Great. And Peter, if people want to get in touch with you or hear about your new book you're working on,
well, they can look on Amazon. My book is listed there under my name, which is Peter Myerson, Myerson. And if they want to reach me, they can send me an email at ppmyerson@aol.com. It's an old browser system, but it works for me. And I'd love to hear from anybody that's read the book.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both for joining on Radio Entrepreneurs this morning. We'll be back with more after this break.